Joining me now is Brian Kilmeade, co-host of Fox & Friends, host of One Nation with Brian Kilmeade, and the Brian Kilmeade radio show on Fox Radio, the indefatigable Brian Kilmeade. Does it look like a train wreck to you? I don't want to prejudge it. What do you think?
It is, and what I find so disconcerting is that the President of the United States is on the record, according to Politico on Tuesday, said enough of dealing with Republicans. Let's call it's going to be war. We're going to shoot for the election. So instead of trying to handle these problems one at a time, finding a way to get gas by going to Venezuela, instead of drilling more, instead of trying to find a way to get our budget in order, he's taking on corporations and billionaires who are fighting back. And I'm glad. Sometimes billionaires seem shy by the fact that they're successful. Most of the time, it takes tremendous sacrifice, innovation, and genius. And I think that's what you find with Jeff Bezos. I don't think anyone gave him anything. I think he was an executive downtown, and he ends up doing a pretty admirable job. You take him on. Finally, he fought back, which is amazing. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, you think they're the problem? They're going to help drag you out of this. And that's why it was so disconcerting to see somebody's leadership skills and instincts tell him it's time to stop dealing with Republicans. That's the way out of this.
Let's pause for a moment. Let's digress for a moment on the Bezos point and the Elon Musk point. But let me begin with Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, which I might add, as you know, has now editorialized against Biden's inattention to inflation. Bezos started from nothing. He's a brilliant entrepreneur. He may be woke. He may not be woke. He may just be a solid businessman. But he has taken Biden on. He is saying no to the corporate tax hike. He is saying you can't mix up inflation and tax hikes. It doesn't work. And he's even gone beyond that by, what did he call them? He said there's squirrely explanations don't make any sense.
He wants to distract. He says,
what is that all about in your judgment?
In my judgment, Bezos just called him out and says, oh, really? Corporations are the problem? Corporations have to pay their fair share? Playing off what Elizabeth Warren came out, and she wants price controls on corporations. She wants to fine oil companies for not drilling on leases, as if the oil companies are the problem. And if they took a second to find out, and I don't expect President Biden, even though he's been doing this for over 40 years, to know every industry in and out. He was chairman of foreign policy. He might not know much about drilling and fracking. So maybe you go down there and say, guys, why aren't you using those leases? What is going on to it? How could I get out of your way? Instead, he tries to vilify him through somebody tweeting for him. And I think a couple of things. I think Jeff Bezos does not want to be blamed for this because he sees this train wreck happening. And he said this, what we've been saying, with you especially, this could be worse. If Joe Manchin didn't stop you, you're going to put $3.6 trillion back into it.
That's what Bezos said. He actually said that.
Yeah.
Which was my line. Actually, it was Senator Kevin Cramer a while back on the Sunday show who said Manchin's trying to save the Democrats from themselves. But Brian Kilmeade, let me just ask you this. The Bezos and Elon Musk, I'm going to separate out for just a moment. I think he has a somewhat different view. But with Bezos, is that the beginning of an exodus of CEOs from the woke model, from the Biden allegiance, and from the Biden's big government socialism? In other words, people are going to line up now. Bezos opened that door, and they're going to run through it, and they're going to take their whacks also, running away from this progressive administration?
I think January 6th freaked a lot of companies out. And they were afraid to cross the Democrats who they thought were going to be in power for 40 years. And I think, and you saw that in Georgia with the election law. And you saw it all change when Ron DeSantis stood up against Disney, and they still have not recovered. And then you see Roe v. Wade seemingly go by the boards, it's certainly on a respirator, and we're going to see if it go permanently out. And instead of saying Republicans are terrible, the courts are bad, we're going to support pro-choice movement or the pro-abortion movement, they came out and said, if you guys need a ride to another state, I'll give it to you, Amazon. They didn't condemn anything. They didn't condone the demonstrations. They didn't condemn the demonstrations. I think that Ron DeSantis taking on Disney has allowed corporations to say, I got a responsibility to my shareholders. So as much as I kind of empathize with you, maybe giving a lip service, I don't really think I could do that. It's not in the best interest of my company. And I think we're seeing that. And for Bezos to stand up, you know why, Larry? It's idiocy. What Joe Biden's doing now is flat out idiocy. He's not running the country. He is running it one direction in the ground. And the lack of communication between their own administration Case in point, what's happening with this baby formula. And I thought it was a great point. We had a former deputy FDA chief on Fox and Friends first today, and he said that he had nobody in the FDA for a year. How could you not do that when you take over in the pandemic?
Good point.
Number two, he says, this is not a problem with materials. This is a problem with manufacturing in a company. You do not need the Defense Production Act for this. He said, okay, tell me where the platform is where we're picking up the French formula and we're dropping it off where, to what state, to what county, to what city. There's no plan here. He signs something, makes an announcement, and then goes off to Japan. I mean, what kind of leadership is that? While the immigration is about to evaporate on Title 42
It was a regulatory issue. It was an anti-business regulatory issue. They never did prove that Abbott was wrong. Abbott claims they were not wrong, but then they got shut down, and then the FDA couldn't open them up. What
did President Trump always do?
He would have come crashing down.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the baby food version of Operation Warp Speed, and Trump would take these FDA people. I'm not saying they're bad people. They're nice people. I knew them all very well.
They'll say, what are you doing?
That's it. Bring them into the Oval and start to tell them, now we're going to cut through the red tape and get something fixed here.
And the thing is,
help the kids, help the children.
You didn't realize what a relief it is to know we all have a problem and someone's trying to fix it. And we used to debate on Trump's approach to trying to fix it. Now we debate on why they're not trying to fix it at all, and in the case of the border, totally ignoring it. And that, to me, is stunning.
Is the era of woke CEOs over?
Yes. I do believe it's over.
We saw the peak. Maybe Disney was the peak.
Right.
Okay. And between DeSantis and the Biden train wreck, between Jeff Bezos, who really has provided leadership? I mean, I don't know the answer. I'm curious to what you're thinking.
Well, you know these people personally, but I remember in 2008, they were all looked at as the problem, from the cars companies to the banks. And they brought in, they were spanked, and they were forced to merge and sell Chrysler. And they sat there and they kind of took it. And then you see them trying to make up for it and go along with the party in power now. And Trump did a great job. I think it was something before you got there. Is having his business council. He goes, give me the CEOs in here. I want to talk to you. Where's it going? Where's it happening?
Of whom Bezos was originally one.
Yeah, and Elon Musk too, until they had the problem with
I brought
the Virginia thing.
I brought Musk back.
You did?
I did.
Right.
With my pal. Anyway, I won't go into more names, but we brought him back into the Oval.
Right. I always say
he made peace with Trump.
When you want to get better, you with people. You want to be with people that are smarter. And the last thing you want to do is alienate them.
Tim Cook back into the Oval and made peace with Trump.
And they stayed in contact.
They weren't necessarily conservatives or Republicans, but they stayed in contact.
Right. Because they appreciate their window on power and that he had a chance to do what he said.
They liked working with him. They liked working with him. That's the lost art. All Biden does is insult businesses. He insults business and then praises to the high heavens labor unions who contribute to higher costs and higher inflation and worse product. Can I just ask you, though, we're running out of time. I mean, I'd talk to you forever anytime. Why are the young people walking away from Biden? We had Quinnipiac poll out today. Young people walking away from Biden. I would have thought they'd be the idealists. And progressivism is supposed to be idealistic, but they're walking away.
Couple of reasons. Number one, the pandemic. You locked these people out for a year and a half. You said the teachers' unions were more important than the parents, let alone the kids. And they sat there looking around and say, who has my back? Then they're making the college kids not only get double vax, get two. Get two boosters, or you're gone. And they do. I know people that have left the state because they didn't want to do it. So you felt like as though people weren't watching you back. You still had to pay your tuition and go to college. The high school kids were forced out, lost their best years, their junior, senior years. I would say anybody watching right now can remember those years. These kids watched it in their bedroom. So I think there's a lot of resentment that we were locked down way too long and forced to do way too much.
And it didn't work.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work. In fact, it turned out to be making things worse.
Right.
The other question I had, Brian, from this same Quinnipiac poll, Hispanics are walking away from Biden. Why is that? Democrats thought, I'll just editorialize for a bit. Democrats thought open borders would help them with the Hispanic Latino community. Turns out that was a big miscalculation, it seems to me.
Absolutely. Trump picked about 5 points in the Hispanic vote from Mitt Romney. We all saw that, what he's done better than John McCain. And then he did better even when he lost in 2020. So now what you have, too, is just flat-out performance. And it's pretty clear that Republicans aren't anti-Hispanic. They're anti-illegal immigration. And I'll add this to it. is that if it seems as though Republicans getting huge swaths, like George Bush had 40% of the Hispanic vote, you watch, they'll go, the more I thought about it, we should build that wall. You know, we should make sure the Hispanics don't come in. The only thing that'll get the Democrats' attention if they think that they're not going to be their voters in the future.
Last one. This is horrible. Not Elon Musk, who's my hero, free speech hero, and Elon Musk has said the Democrats used to be the party of compassion and kindness most of the time. Now they've become the party of division and hatred, okay? And he's said in a couple tweets in recent days he's going to vote Republican this time around, which I find fascinating, and I'm delighted to hear it.
While saying he's a moderate.
He probably is. I mean, I think he's a libertarian, frankly. Anyway, I want to read you some. I mentioned this last night. I want to do it again. This crazy person, Paul Krugman, columnist for the New York Times, a really whacked out far-left guy who is a hater. He is a hater. He's just what Elon Musk was talking about, a hater. And so he writes his column in the Times, and he concludes this. I don't think you'd seen this before. He says, there is, I would argue, Krugman would argue, a direct line, are you ready for this? A direct line from the Laffer curve to January 6th to Buffalo. Now, just pause for, just what is that? Is that not hatred? Is that not the worst embodiment of the American spirit or the American psyche or the American culture you've ever heard? He's blaming Art Laffer, who was a pioneer in economics. You may not agree with it, although the data is pretty good. From the Laffer curve to January 6th to Buffalo, this is Paul Krugman from the New York Times? Huh? Really? No wonder people are running away from that crowd.
I feel as though he was briefed at one point, if you want to keep your job, find a way to include one of them in each, something tragic linked to Republicans in each and every column. The only thing I'm sure, when I get my editorial collections in the morning, the only thing I'm sure is I'm not going to read him. That did capture my attention.
You did? Yeah.
The supply side economics has to do with a 18-year-old Buffalo shooter who decides he's going to go to school in a hazmat suit, threatened to blow up the school and kill himself, passed through a long meeting with the state police who said he's psychiatrically allowed to not only go back home, they don't even red flag his bio, so some gun owner has to live with the fact that they gave him that. Please tell me how Art Laffer has anything to do with that. Supply side economics, his theory of driving prices down by flooding the market with products in order to create greater competition, is the economic theory that has been effective. You would know it. He'll debate it till the cows come home. That's a science, nothing to do with a shooter.
That's the hatred that Musk, that's
talking about,
driving Musk into the Republicans. And I just wonder, you see it with Biden, who used to be kind of a nice guy when he was a senator. He's become very mean-spirited. And some of these crazy left-wing people in the papers and on other cable news. I mean, I think that's driving people away from the Democrats and into the Republican Party. The Republican Party has its own flaws, but this is the kind of hatred that people don't want. They don't want it.
And I'll end with, I know you're getting yelled at, but the only, no one yells at you. They'll yell at somebody. Yo, Larry Kudlow.
No, we're going to the EP is going to blame you.
Right.
It's okay.
That's good. I'll get an angry email or voicemail. But the only thing I would add to is Republicans got to make a move to try to say to his Hispanics, not only do you not want to be a Democrat, this is the advantage of being a Republican.
Right.
And I would say to the black community, too. Listen, I don't care what anyone tells you. You get in front and you explain in urban environments what you would like to do. Don't let anyone describe me in any way. If you have anything to say, we're here. We're coming back Sunday. We're coming back Wednesday.
How about crime, law and order, and economic opportunity, just for starters?
Right.
Okay.
But Republicans have to show up in the cities. They don't show up.
That I agree with.
Yes.
As a long-time Jack Kemp civil rights Republican, I couldn't agree more. Brian Kilmeade, top of the line. Did you have a book? They're not promoting your book.
No, it's okay.
Abe Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, which I read. I interviewed you on radio and television. I want to push the book. The book is fabulous.
Well, thanks. Paperback in a few months. But I would like to say I want everyone to watch on Saturday at 8 o'clock.
Boom.
Boom. There we go. One Nation.
Great stuff.